Today we're going to talk about the endocrine system. But before we talk about the endocrine system, you know what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about the other systems we've been talking about so that we don't forget about all the other systems, right? Cool. Awesome. Just basic stuff because we want to, kind of basically understand all this stuff. And I know I've said this 100 times and I'm a broken record, but I think it helps in learning too. These systems are kind of arbitrary. Remember, like we just decided to talk about all the bones and call that the skeletal system. But the bones make the blood. So really they could be part of the circulatory system. But the blood from the circulatory system keeps the nerves alive, for example, or the muscles alive. So you could call it part of the muscular system or the nervous system. But the nervous system tells the heart to beat and the bones to do certain things. And so that could be called, they can all blend together is the point here. Yeah? We broke them up for easier understanding. So, if we look at a human body, the first system that we see in a way is the integumentary system. Yep, the integumentary system. And Miss Nguyen, what is the integumentary system? I'm asking you because I asked you before.
Yeah. Please ask me again.
What is the integumentary system?
Hair and nail and skin.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Hair, skin, and nails. Cool. And Miss Hunter. Oh, good. She's like, yes, I can hear you. Either through the wall or the computer or something. Yeah. Miss Hunter. Skin has 3 main layers. It's got a whole bunch of layers, depending on how you want to break it down, but it's got 3 main layers. Do you remember what they're called?
Yes. Epidermis is first. Then it's just the dermis. Oh my god. And then the last one is, give me 1 second. Superficial. Oh no, hypodermis, duh, yeah.
By the way, you were about to say superficial fascia, which is also correct, right? But I was just sticking with the dermis theme for learning purposes. But you're 100% correct. Thank you very much. Miss Hanson, what are the 3 names down here for the last layer of skin?
Hypodermis, superficial fascia, and I can never say this word.
Subcutaneous. Yep. Awesome. Good job. Cool. I love that. All right. That's good. Thank you. Miss Bolotic, what is the integumentary system? Just what is it?
Hair, skin, and nails.
Cool. And what are the 3 layers of skin?
The epidermis, dermis, and the hypodermis.
Cool. Thank you. That's it. I was just having everybody review what we just talked about. By the way, everybody, there is like 5 layers of the dermis and all that stuff, but I'm not worried about it. I just don't want you to, if you ever hear people talking about more layers, it depends on how they divide it all up, right? There are 5 layers of epidermis and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, for our purposes, this is really good. Cool. Miss Harper, what does the skin do for me? Like, what does the integumentary system do for me?
Protection.
I'm sorry, what?
First is the protection.
Protection, sure.
Yes. Temperature for what is that? Thermal regulation.
Wow, that was fancy. Yes, thermal regulation, which means temperature control, but that was well said.
And then vitamin D absorption, something.
Yeah, your skin can absorb too.
Yeah, and it's also like a skin barrier.
It is also a skin barrier, sure. First line of defense.
Yeah.
Vitamin D.
Yes. That's all I remember. For sensory.
Yeah. I think you pretty nailed it. I mean, there might be something that we missed, but I can't think of it. That was really, really good. Thank you. Thank you. So, Miss Torres? Miss Torres, what is the integumentary system?
Skin, nails, and hair.
Yes. What does it do for me?
It helps regulate temperature, helps with the sensory. It has defense mechanism, protection, and it helps create vitamin D.
Beautiful. Great answers. Great answers. Thank you. Okay, so that's, oh, and sorry, by the way, what are the three main layers of skin, Ms. Torres? I know as an esthetician you'll know this for sure.
Oh, for sure not. I'm just kidding. Epidermis. I was just thinking about, oh my God, I don't remember the 5 layers of the first layer. I was just thinking about it when you said it.
You're an esthetician. You spent 6 months on that.
I know, but I don't remember.
That's very normal.
Names, I just don't even remember the order.
Oh, I don't.
So anyways,
I don't remember the order off the top of my head. Sorry.
Epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis.
Cool. I love that. Awesome. 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 Okay. Okay. So if I peel off the skin, I can see the muscles underneath. Yeah. Miss Felix Osuna,
Yes.
what composes the muscular system?
Smooth, cardiac, skeletal.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So those are the 3 types of muscles. And the muscular system is essentially composed of muscles and tendons, associated fascia. But anyway, I love that. Where would I find smooth muscle?
That would be the veins and arteries.
Yes, lining the tubes of my body, so it could be other things, and around organs and things like that, but well said. Where would I find the skeletal muscle?
That would be bones.
Yeah, it's the stuff that makes me move. Cool. And where would I find the cardiac?
That would be heart.
Heart. Yes. Thank you very much. Miss Yanez? Do you remember how the muscles were like wrapped in fascia and then wrapped in more fascia and wrapped in like fascia as we go down through them? Mm-hmm. So can you tell me the first layer of fascia for the muscular system?
The epimysium.
And the next layer?
The paramysium.
Oh, hold on. And the last layer?
The endomysium.
Mysium. Yeah. Well, there's some similarities there. I really like that. All right, cool. Cool. Thank you very much. I think that's good. All right, Miss Cooper. What is the muscular system?
The muscular system is muscles,
Pretty much. You pretty much answered. Muscles and associated fascia, like tendons.
fascia, would it be tendons?
Yep, that's it. What are the 3 types of muscle?
It's cardiac, smooth, and skeletal.
Cool. Where would I find cardiac?
Your heart.
Cool. Would I find it anywhere else?
No.
Good. Where would I find skeletal?
Your bones.
Your bones. And where would I find smooth?
Smooth would be anywhere that's not your bones.
That's a good answer. Smooth lines the tubes inside my body, things like my esophagus or my arteries and veins, and it goes around some organs as well too, but kind of the tubes of my body. Yeah.
No.
Helps stuff move along in your body usually. All right. Cool. What are the things my muscular system can do for me?
muscular system moves you.
Yes. We call it, yeah, motor movements. Absolutely. That's number one. That's definitely what the skeletal system does mainly. And it can move stuff through my body too because of lining those cavities and such. That's good. Is there anything else it can do? On a cold day like today?
Thermoregulation.
Heat production, which would help in thermoregulation. It can make you hot. Your muscles can make you hot. Good. I like it. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Can you go like this?
Yeah. Well, your body can do that too. It can shiver inside. And anytime you use your muscles, they give off heat. That's why you sweat in the gym. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Mr. Kandaris. Kind of underneath the muscles, we have the bones, which is part of the skeletal system. What makes up the skeletal system, sir?
Bones and ligaments.
Yeah, actually that was pretty good. Bones, ligaments, and associated joints. Yeah, and I'm glad he said ligaments because ligaments attach bone to bone. So bones, ligaments, associated joints. I love that. Okay, sir, and what can the skeletal system do for me?
Move you.
It acts as levers that my muscles can act on for motion. Yep.
Support your and keep you erect.
Yes, got it. Structure for my
muscles.
flesh to hang off of and everything.
So,
Yep.
no, it didn't function.
Can it make anything?
Calcium.
Can't make calcium. It can store and release calcium.
That was done, I think.
No, it's not. It's not. In some ways, it releases calcium when you need it. That's actually true. But could it make anything that my circulatory system might need?
Yes, I can't think of it.
They come in red and white colors.
Cells. Red and white cell.
Red and white, what kind of cells as we're approaching Halloween?
Blood.
Yes, blood cells. Yes, it can produce red and white blood cells. Awesome. And it does do some fat storage and some mineral storage, and it actually can release calcium out in your body when you need it, which can be a problem if you need it all the time. But anyway, well said. Thank you, sir. We'll take it. Miss Nguyen. Hi. What is the skeletal system? What is it? What's it made of?
Bone.
Yep. And
Bone and fascia and tendon.
yeah, bone, not tendon. Tendon attaches fascia, sure. What attaches bone to bone? What fascia attaches bone to bone? It starts with an L. It's not a tendon, but it looks like one.
Ligament.
Ligament. Yeah.
Ligament. Yeah, so ligament and associated joints.
And joint. Yeah.
Joints. So ligaments, joints, and bones.
Yeah.
So what makes up the skeletal system again?
Bone, ligament, and joint.
Perfect. We'll take it. Thank you, ma'am. Good job. Miss Petrie. This is a tough one. So we've talked about the layers of the skin with fascia. Then we talked about the layers of muscle with fascia around them. These are the fascial layers, kind of like. There's fascia around the bone. There's a fascia around the bone. Do you remember what it's called? I can give you a hint, too.
Is it called bone fascia?
It is called bone fascia, but there's a scientific name for it, too.
Let's see. It would be...
Have you ever heard of osteoporosis?
Yes.
Osteum means bone, so it's got that word in it.
Okay.
Osteum in it. At the end of it. And then it might have something on the board in front of it.
Periosteum?
Yeah!
Yes! I can't believe I got that right.
It's amazing. Cool. Awesome. Okay, I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it.
And that's the fascia around the bone.
Yes, and we've had long discussions. I don't mean we've had long discussions so you should know, but we've had long discussions about why it's so important. Because your tendons and ligaments weave, that fascia weaves into the fascia on the bone. It's why it can grab so well. Yeah,
Okay.
and the bone's got fascia running through it too. There's pretty just
Right.
much fascia everywhere, right? Right. Cool.
Okay. Periosteum is the fascia around the bone.
Cool.
Okay.
And what is the skeletal system made of, Miss Petrie?
Oh, still me. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I don't know.
The skeletal is made of bones, ligaments, and joints.
Bones, ligaments, and joints. Yes. Yes. Thank you. And what can it do for me?
Oh, it movements, supports, it's
That was good. That was good, right?
protection, blood cell production, both red and white, fat storage, and mineral storage.
Wow. You have definitely redeemed yourself because that was the best answer I could possibly think of. That was awesome. Really well done. Thank you. Okay.
These are my notes, so sorry, I had to look at my notes.
No, I want you guys to write notes down and use them to answer the questions. Because then all we're doing here is studying. I know it feels like I'm testing you, but I could care less actually. I'm not testing you to see if you got it right. I want you to regurgitate the information. I want you to go back to your notes and remember it again. Because then we're building pathways in your brain for you to remember it long term. That was excellent. Thank you. And thank you for taking such good notes. That's the whole idea. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see. Miss Monreal. I somehow skipped over you. And I don't want to leave you out. Are you still vibrating?
No, I'm not vibrating.
Okay. But you're done with your vibration therapy. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Good. I like that. Let's talk about, we've got skin and we've got muscles and we've got muscles going to the bones. So the muscular system, at least the skeletal muscles are attached to bones, but they can't move those bone levers. The muscles can't move these bones around unless they get a signal from another system. What system signals the muscles, and does lots of other stuff too, by the way, but what system signals the muscles to move?
Central nervous system.
Yeah, the entire nervous system, sure.
Okay.
But I like what you're saying. You're saying central because that's where the signal would come from. You're absolutely right. Well said. Okay, so the
you
nervous,
want the part that actually does that for the muscles.
I'm so sorry, what? What was the question? I talked over you.
Do you want specifically like the part that is in charge of the muscles or whatever?
No, I mean, I wanted what you said, basically. I just wanted to say
Okay.
the nervous system is responsible for sending and receiving signals. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll ask you some more questions about the nervous system since we're talking now.
Okay.
It is composed of two large physical components. You just listed one of them, the central nervous system. What's the other half of the nervous system?
Peripheral.
Peripheral, right. What is the central nervous system made up of? Two things.
Nerves.
Right, but what two parts make up the central nervous system?
Oh, like subdivisions? Is that what you meant? Okay, the autonomic, I always forget how to say it. Is that
Oh,
right?
wait, you're getting way ahead of me though still. I still want to kind of know, like if I was 5 years old, what is the central nervous system? Is it something I find on Central Avenue? Like what is it?
The spinal cord and
Can you see me?
the nerve.
Can you see me
No,
right
I
now?
can't. Well, like, okay, you're all close up. No, hold on. How do I make it smaller? There, I got it. Your brain and spinal cord?
Yeah!
Okay.
Great spinal cord. Okay. And then the peripheral nerves, what are they?
Anything besides the brain and spinal cord?
Yeah, that's a legitimate answer. It's all the nerves that come off the spinal cord to feed the rest of the body, right?
Yes.
And all the nerves coming back to the spinal cord to get back up to the brain so that I know what's going on. Cool. Cool. Okay. Should I keep asking you questions?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know how well I'll do, but I do want to try.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's helpful if somebody takes the first, hit so we can hear the answers before I call on somebody else. Okay, so we have a big nervous system, which is the telephone system for my body. I use it to call out orders and I use it to receive information. It's composed of a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Cool, cool, cool. And then we said the peripheral nervous system is divided up still further, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool beans. And what is the peripheral nervous system divided up into? Two things.
Okay, it's autonomic and
I like this, where you're going with this.
I mean, yes, was that correct?
Yeah, we'll take it. Autonomic and what? Shoot.
I don't have my book in front of me. Hold on, I'm trying to just remember out of my brain.
Somatic.
Somatic.
Autonomic and somatic. What are those two things? Explain them to us.
Okay, the autonomic is like stuff that's done automatically that you don't have to think about.
Yeah, it's stuff that there's even argument if you even can think about it, but yes, yeah, actually, automatic. Good point.
And then the somatic is like voluntary things.
Yeah, it's what you're using to move your mouth right now. You're voluntarily controlling it and thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same wires, by the way, everybody. It's the same peripheral system. It's the same telephone wires. It's just some of those wires have been put on automation and some have not. So I know it gets kind of confusing. All right. And then we divided the autonomic nervous system down even further. And we said this automatic nervous system can run in two modes. Same wires, same stuff, but it can run in two modes automatically. What are those two modes?
Sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yeah, and what are those two things?
Okay, the parasympathetic is like rest and digest, and the sympathetic is like fight or flight.
Yeah, good, thank you. Let's stop there. That was really good. Yeah, you kind of picked up steam at the end. I like it. That's good. Cool. Okay. So, Miss Yanes, let's recap all this nervous system stuff because it gets confusing. We have the whole nervous system of my whole body, which is my way to communicate to my muscles and my organs and all that stuff from my brain. And it's also the way for all my information from the outside world through my eyeballs, my ears, my sense, my nose, to get back to my brain and talk to me. Cool. That system is physically divided into two big portions. What are the two major components of the nervous system?
The central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system.
Beautiful. And what is the central nervous system made of?
The brain and the spinal cord.
Cool. And the peripheral nervous system is?
The cranial nerves and the spinal nerves.
Yeah, well said, actually. It's all the other nerves coming off the spine. Some do sneak out from the cranium, but all those nerves that go out to the rest of my body. Without them, it doesn't really matter because you wouldn't get any information back. Cool. And the peripheral nervous system is divided up into two components.
The somatic and the autonomic.
Yeah, somatic and autonomic. And the autonomic does what?
It regulates organs, glands, and smooth muscle.
Yeah, well said, actually. It's very true. Organs, glands, and smooth muscle. Beautifully said, by the way. And it's automatic. And the somatic does what?
It's voluntary and it regulates the skeletal muscles and joints.
Yeah. Thank you. It's voluntary, right? And the autonomic can run in two different modes, so to speak.
The parasympathetic and sympathetic.
Yeah, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Yeah. What's sympathetic?
That's like your fight or flight.
Yeah, it actually sympathizes with incoming information. It says, yeah, let's get ramped up here. Let's go. And what's the parasympathetic?
Energy conservation.
Yeah, it's energy conservation. It's rest and digest. And what is every massage therapist hoping, what state is every massage therapist hoping to get their client into?
The parasympathetic.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But yeah, that's when you heal. There's no doubt about it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Miss Felix Osuna, I have a question to ask you. All these peripheral nerves are the same wires, but we have names when the wires receive information and names for them when they give information. Do you remember what that is? And I don't know if I described the question very well either, so I will apologize in advance. But there's two words. One sends out information about effort that your muscles should do, and the other one comes in after information has been received and gives it to your head.
Is it afferent and efferent?
Thank you. Afferent and efferent nerves. Everybody, these are the same wires, but they name them based on what the wires are used for. And if the wires are transmitting information up to your brain after it's received it, we call that an afferent nerve. And if it's coming down from my brain saying, I want you to produce some effort, we call it an efferent nerve. But it's the same wires, but they're used for different things. Some are making telephone calls in, some are making telephone calls out. Afferent and efferent. Thank you. I think that covers that pretty well. Ms. Torres. Ms. Torres, we actually have fascia around the nerves themselves. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you remember what the fascia is around the nerves themselves?
Is it epineurium?
It is. That was really good.
Perineum? I don't know how to say it.
That's correct. But let me make sure I'm spelling it right. It's epineurium. Yep.
Epineurium.
Did I spell it right? Sorry, my spelling's terrible. I want to make sure. Neurium. I did, but I spelled it wrong. But it is epineurium.
Perineurium and endoneurum.
And endoneurium.
Endoneurum.
Wow, that's a lot of fascia layers and stuff. Very cool. Okay, thank you, and good job, by the way. Very good job. Cool. Okay, so, wow. All right, Miss Hunter. So, Miss Hunter, let's go through a whole bunch of layers of all these systems, just layers of fascia. This isn't the actual systems. This is fascia covering stuff and protecting stuff and keeping stuff bundled together. Because you guys got to remember that actually muscles and bones and nerves especially are very fragile. So the fascia, which is connective tissue, actually makes them strong and safe and protects them. But let's start out at our uppermost layer of actual fascia. They call it skin, but it's fascia. And that's called your what?
Epidermis.
Yes. And the next layer is your...
Dermis.
And the next layer is your...
Hypodermis.
Or superficial fascia. And if we rip that off and we see a big group of muscles there, they're going to be wrapped in...
Epimysium.
Yep, and if we tear that down, usually the individual muscles they're going to be wrapped in...
Paramysium.
Yep, and then the actual muscle fibers will be wrapped in...
Endomysium.
Endomysium. And if we get to a bone, it'll be wrapped in...
Periosteum.
Osteum. And there's got to be nerves feeding those muscles and such. And by the way, the bones, believe it or not, give them information. And big bundles of nerves are wrapped in what?
Epineurium.
Epineurium. Yep. And then the smaller bundles are wrapped in...
Perineurium.
And the single nerve fibers, which are nerve cells, but the single nerve fibers are wrapped in what?
Endoneurium. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, endoneurium. That was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you for spoon feeding that to me.
Well, I didn't think like anybody could just list them, so I thought let's just read them out loud together. Yes.
Awesome.
So how about I give you something that's not spoon-fed though? The nerve.
No, I prefer the spoon feeding.
Oh, okay. You're like, it's a spoon feeding morning. Okay. That's cool. You can take that. You're allowed a little bit of that. All right, Miss Stanley. Really quickly, because we got to get onto the endocrine system, of course, but let's talk a little bit more in detail about some of this stuff. So, let's talk about the layers here, but then we're going to take little stops along the way to talk about stuff in those layers a little bit. Just follow with me a little bit. What's the top layer of skin called?
Epidermis?
Yep, what's the next layer called?
Dermis?
And what's the last layer called?
Hypodermis?
Or?
Subcutaneous or superficial fascia.
Superficial fascia, which leads down to muscle fascia. What's this top layer of muscle fascia called?
Epimysium?
Yep, and then what's the next layer called?
Paramysium?
And then what's this layer called?
Endomysium?
All right, let's stop and talk about endomysium for a second. Not about the endomysium, but the endomysium is around a single muscle cell or muscle fiber. There were some very interesting things about muscle cells and muscle fibers, right? They can only do one thing, by the way. What's the one thing, and don't get confused by this because I've been saying it the whole course, I'm just saying it differently now. What's the one thing that a muscle fiber can do?
Contract?
Thank you. It's a contractile fiber. That's what its job is all day long. When they're born, they're like, I'm going to contract, right? That's what they do. So they contract, they pull together, they shorten. Can they kind of partially contract? Can they contract like 10% when they want to and 90% other times to kind of control power?
Yeah. No?
No.
Ah.
They are all or nothing. Because the way I control power, when I actually lift my arm up like this, my brain tells like 10 fibers to fire. But they're firing full power. If I need more power, my brain fires more fibers at once. But there's no throttle on the fibers. The fibers are all out. They do their job fully, all out. Cool?
Mm.
All right. Do you remember what the little contracting units were called inside those muscle fibers that actually did the contraction?
I want to say the sarcomere?
I want you to say the sarcomeres. Sarcomeres. And they had thin and thick what inside them?
Filaments?
Filaments, thin and thick filaments. And that was made with two proteins.
Actin and myosin?
You nailed it. You did really, really good. All right. So that's this. Then we got down to the periosteum. Then what's the top layer of fascia around a whole group of nerves?
Epineurum?
Epineurum. And then what's the next one?
Perineurium?
Yes. And what's the last one?
Endonurium?
Endoneurium. And that's around a single muscle fiber. I mean, a single muscle fiber. I'm so sorry. A single nerve cell or fiber. They look funky because they have an end on them that receives all the information. You remember what the little finger-like projections coming out of the end are called? Starts with a D.
Dendrites?
Dendrites is you're nailing it, man. Dendrites, and they receive the information, and the cell is excitable, which means it can be excited, and it sends a signal then shooting off a long tail. Remember what that tail was called? Starts with an A.
Axon?
Axon. Yeah. Axon. And that tail goes off to stimulate other dendrites or go into a muscle or whatever. Very, very good. Let me ask you one last question. Can the nerve fiber throttle itself? Can it fire at like 10% or 90% depending on how much signal it wants to send?
No.
No, just like the muscle fiber can. So when your brain sends a signal, it sends a signal. It's like Morse code. It's either on or off. It's like a computer in that sense. It's either a 0 or a 1. And when it sends it to a muscle fiber, that muscle fiber is like, we're going. We're your man. Boom, we're doing it. And so the way the brain controls power output is to actually just shoot off more nerves and more muscle fibers. But they're either like yes or no. There is no maybe inside your body. Yeah. Well done. Thank you so much. That was really, really good. That was a lot of hard stuff. Okay. Let's go on and talk about the endocrine system, everybody. Okay? So, hold on, let me flip to the endocrine system in my book too. All right, good. So the all right, whew, do we need a 5-minute break? Do I need a 5-minute break? Everybody, can we take a 5-minute break? Yeah. I'm going to go refresh my coffee, and then I will actually teach you something of value here. So 5 minutes, everybody. Let's talk about the endocrine system. Endocrine system. The endocrine system, very simply put, is glands and hormones. And glands make hormones. You also have some cells inside your organs that make hormones too, and that would be considered part of the endocrine system too. Who cares, right? So let me explain why you might want to care. We just learned about your nervous system, and essentially your nervous system is a system of wires going to and from your brain, sending and receiving signals. And often when these wires leave your brain, at the end of them, at the end of this electricity that they're kind of running down this wire, they deliver their last message at the end to not just to a muscle. We always think about it in terms of muscles because we're massage therapists and we care about movement. But they send stuff to organs and all sorts of stuff is being controlled by your brain right now. I would argue, I don't know the exact number, but this is not an exaggeration. There's probably 1 million messages a minute, maybe more, going to your body right now from your brain down nerves, telling things to work and do stuff that you don't have to worry about at all. So anyway, when a message comes down the nervous system via this kind of electrical impulse, really just like telephone wires work, at the end it transmits its message with what's called a neurotransmitter. And the neurotransmitter is a chemical message that it dumps onto a cell or onto a muscle to get it to do something. The message is, that's just how it relays the message. And it's transmitting the message of the nerve, a neurotransmitter. And it's a chemical message. And it gets the nerve to, it gets the muscle, for example, to fire and contract by changing the calcium balance in the sarcomeres. Or it gets a cell to start producing something, or it gets your liver to work harder or not, or whatever. It's transmitting this message. And your nervous system tends to be very fast. It needs to be. You need to be able to jump out of the way of a car or a tiger or whatever. And your nervous system is very fast. But it communicates to your body with neurotransmitters at the end. Your endocrine system communicates to your body too. And it communicates with hormones. And hormones are also chemical messengers. They tend to not operate as quickly because usually your endocrine system drops its messages into your bloodstream. So your nervous system goes right to the spot of something and says, hey, you need to do something right now. Your endocrine system pumps stuff out into your bloodstream and it finds its way to the cell that's ready to receive that message, and then it starts doing whatever it's telling it to do. So hormones are chemical messengers. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers too. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers at the end of your nervous system. Hormones are what glands produce, and they are chemical messengers too that in general float around your bloodstream and get picked up by cells that need that message. So hormones you tend to respond to hormones more slowly than your nervous system. They're not running at the speed of electricity, right? And they tend to last longer too. And they turn on and off processes in your body. Really important processes. And of course, we think about hormones. Every time you hear about hormones, right, it's like, oh, you're being hormonal, or you're going through puberty, or we think about it kind of in sexual terms and stuff like that. And that's true. Hormones most definitely tell your body when to be a reproducing person and all that kind of stuff. But hormones do a lot of other stuff just on a daily basis. They actually control your calcium balance and your sugar balances. So people that are diabetics sometimes are diabetics sometimes because they're not producing enough insulin, for example, which is a hormone that tells the body to pick up sugar and get it out of the bloodstream. So your hormones help you control sugar balances in your body. And by the way, sugar balances are really important. You die if you have too much sugar in your blood. And salt balances and calcium balances too. It tells your body to pick up calcium and put it into your bones, or take calcium out of your bones if there's not enough, because your calcium ion balance is very important too. So hormones do a lot of the management of the body, just like the nervous system does too. They just operate at a different speed. They're not usually as quick as the nervous system is. Anyway, so some people, because remember I said we divide up the nervous system, and we divide up all these systems in the body to better understand the body, but really they could go together. So some people will even lump the nervous system, the endocrine system together and call them the neuroendocrine system. Because what they're saying is, hey, both these things are really responsible for regulating the body. And if you want to know how the body's regulated, it's the neuroendocrine system. So I don't want you to stress about this. I don't even know if that's going to be on a test or anything, but I just want you to kind of understand the concept that we can divide them up and look at them separately, or we can look at them together, because they both talk to the body. The nervous system talks to the body, and the endocrine system talks to the body. And they both use chemical messengers. The endocrine system's chemical messengers are hormones, and they are powerful. They're powerful. And they really control the balances in your body. So if you remembered nothing else a year from now about the endocrine system, then that would actually really be enough. It really would be. This chapter is going to throw a whole lot of particular hormones at you. I expect you to not memorize these. I expect you to look at your book. I expect you, because I think it's a little bit of a waste of brain space. And I don't mean the information's not important, but as a daily massage therapist, you can't directly influence insulin in somebody's body. So I'd like you to be aware that the stuff exists, but I don't want you to have to memorize this list of things that's never going to affect you in your daily massage life. That said, there's a lot of belief that massage can actually help the endocrine system. I'm not going to tell you how right now, because you're going to tell me how later. At least one of you are. So massage can help the endocrine system, but you don't have to know what the particular hormones are and all that kind of stuff. It gets very, very complex where they come from. And you probably noticed that if you did the matching in your book last night. You're like, it's a short chapter packed with lots of like, this thing exists in this part of the brain, and it puts out this stuff that controls this other stuff. And that's the other thing that's very complicated about the endocrine system. Some of the hormones go tell other glands to make their hormones that then finally deliver the end message. And a lot of this stuff, by the way, these glands are all over your body, but a lot of them are inside your brain. Your brain is a chemical factory, and a lot of the ways, it makes sense if you think about it. So my brain has two ways of talking to my body. One is it can send a wire out, right, down my brain, through the nervous system, down my brain, through my spine, into my peripheral nervous system, using a nerve that we would call an efferent nerve, because it's going to send a message, and it says, hey, do this thing. It can do that. It can also create a chemical that gets produced from a gland inside my brain and goes into my bloodstream and goes floating around and gets to this cell and says, hey, do this thing. So it's got two ways of communicating with the body, and a lot of it has to do whether it's a quick communication or a long-term communication. So like growth hormones aren't an instant thing. There's something that come on slowly, and you have in your body for many years to tell you to grow, tell your bones to grow. But anyway, the point is, it makes sense that you would have glands in your brain producing hormones that would tell your body what to do, because this is the command center of my body. Now, I do have glands other places, but this is the command center of my body, and so that kind of makes sense. So that's kind of an overview of the endocrine system. What is the endocrine system? Glands and hormones. What are hormones? Chemical messengers. Chemical messengers that tell other cells what to do. Yeah? Yeah. So, what is the endocrine system? Glands and hormones. What are hormones? They're chemical messengers that tell cells what to do. And everything in your body is a cell, by the way. Everything. Some kind of cell. So, Miss Petrie, I feel bad for picking on you because you're nodding affirmatively. So it just, but what is the endocrine system?
Glands and hormones.
Thank you. And what do hormones do? What are they?
Hormones are the chemical messenger to other cells, tell other cells what to do. Sorry.
Bam. Thank you. She just summed up my entire lecture for the next 2 days. Beautiful.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Good job. All right. So let me share my screen here. Am I sharing already? I don't think I am. All right. I'm not sharing already. Boom. So chapter 24, endocrine system. We're going to talk about pathologies too eventually.
May I ask, you said this is a 2-day lecture?
No, I'm hoping, I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm hoping that what we do is we get through all of this today, that you guys present on some pathologies tomorrow like we always do,
Right.
and then we do more summary tomorrow.
Okay.
Because
I was going to say, this is such a short chapter. I mean, I understand that it's a very complicated chapter, because, I mean, at least for myself, I would say that. But I can see it being a 2-day long chapter, especially if you're saying it's not the most important chapter for us to act as massage therapist. Even though important, it's not the most important.
yeah, I think I couldn't have said it better myself. It's an incredibly complex system of the body. It's super powerful. It's super amazing. However, I feel like what we would be doing is spending 2 days memorizing hormones. Because most of this chapter is this hormone does this thing. Okay, but what do I do with that information? Will I ever use that? And I worry about teaching you 2 things. I worry about teaching you something that you won't remember and won't use. So I think it's more important that we're impressed with how much the endocrine system does and how important it is, and to have heard of some of these hormones. I want you to have heard of insulin, things like that, because you need to understand what diabetes is and things like that. But yes, we are not going to go through and line by line go through like the table 24.2, which is a whole list of hormones and such. I do not want you to have to memorize that. I don't know of a massage school that does. Many massage schools don't really even teach anything about this. But anyway, yeah. So that's why I think I can fit the lecture in today. And I'm not trying to minimize it. The endocrine system is super important. It works with your nervous system. But you're not going to have a lot of direct control over it. So let's just kind of understand what's going on in this miracle of your body, so to speak. Did we answer each other's questions there, Ms. Petrie? Kind of? Okay. All right, so you can see my slide presentation right now. I've already kind of said some of this stuff. This just says it more technically, but the endocrine system works with the nervous system to coordinate body functions, to tell your body what to do. And just remember, the endocrine system uses hormones, whereas the nervous system uses neurotransmitters. But those are both chemical messengers. Yes. Yeah. So she's a diabetic and she needs regular insulin shots. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. Anyway, sorry, that just threw me off for a second. Anyway, most cells in your body have receptors to both pick up nerve messages and hormone messages, because cells are like the tiny troops of your body, and they need messages from the commander-in-chief up here. So most of them are designed to receive messages from both. And it just depends on how quick a message that is that needs to be received. So the basic rule of thumb, don't worry about this whole picture stuff, but the basic rule of thumb is that your hormone system works slowly, and your endocrine system works slowly with your hormones, and your nervous system works quickly. Right? So I can instantly respond to something with, like, if somebody throws a ball at me or a bone, I can instantly respond and move. My endocrine system tends to send messages that don't need immediate response, like, hey, calcium levels are getting kind of high. We should start putting calcium into the bone. Like, that's not something that needs an immediate reaction, but it does need to be done. And also, if you think about it, when I'm absorbing calcium, or with the insulin you were talking about, Ms. Petrie, that is usually something that needs to occur out throughout my entire body. Blood sugar is in my blood everywhere. And so the message needs to go everywhere. Here's what we're doing with this sugar that we're finding everywhere. Whereas nervous system stuff tends to be sending something to a specific spot. The endocrine system, because it's pumping chemical messengers into your blood, is controlling body-wide kinds of messages. Does that make sense? Okay. So endocrine glands secrete, I've already said this by the way, they secrete chemical messengers, hormones into the blood. You also have exocrine glands. You've already actually learned about some of these, like in your skin. Exocrine just means they secrete products into ducts, and quite often to the outside of your body. So your sweat glands, your sebaceous glands, which are oil glands, those are glands that secrete stuff to the outside of the body. But we're talking about the endocrine system. So we're more interested in the glands that are secreting stuff directly into the bloodstream. These other glands, these exocrine glands, tend to be on the outside of things, and they're secreting like oil on top of my skin, or sweat to cool me off, or saliva, which isn't on the outside, but it's in my mouth. Those are exocrine, outside X. But we are dealing with endocrine glands, endocrine, within endocrine glands. This is a great picture, actually. This is essentially where all the glands in your body live that produce these hormones. And your book goes on and on about the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland because they produce so much important stuff. So many hormones that tell your body what to do. And we will talk about some of those. But those are powerful, powerful glands that often even tell other glands what to produce. And we will also talk about the thyroid gland, which is found inside your throat, around your throat actually, around your throat, and the parathyroid glands, which are actually found on the thyroid gland. They're these tiny little 4 or 5 glands that are found on the thyroid gland. We'll talk a little bit about the adrenal glands that are found on the kidneys there. Adrenal glands are what get you hyped up. They actually dump adrenaline into your bloodstream when you have to go into the sympathetic system and go into fight or flight. So quite often when you're in your sympathetic system, your nervous system tells the adrenal glands to drop adrenaline into you. We'll talk about the pancreas a little bit. And we actually won't, not because it's uncomfortable or anything like that, but we're not really going to go into reproductive glands. But ovaries and testes produce hormones that give us most of our traits, by the way. This is kind of interesting. Men and women, structurally speaking, are almost identical. So when we have a skeleton, in fact, it's very hard for us to identify if the skeleton is male or female. So there are some characteristics. Men tend to be a little bit bigger, things like this. But structurally speaking, men and women aren't that different. And it's the hormones in our body that make us different. This is why people can take hormone treatments and essentially switch sexes, right? And you will have clients like that too, right? It's a preference thing. So, but the point is, I think you're going to discover this in massage too, and I think that's kind of interesting. Our society, we accentuate differences. So not only do we have slightly different hormones if you're a male or a female, but then we do all sorts of stuff to accentuate our differences, right? Women wear high heels maybe, and men don't, that kind of thing. So we do things to make ourselves even more apart than we realize that we are. We even pick up certain mannerisms, socially and such, that we would consider more male or female. But biologically speaking, men and women are not that different at all. I realize women can make babies, and that's huge. But anyway, all those changes came on because of hormonal influences in your body. And theoretically, you could switch somebody back to the other sex. Theoretically. Boom. Okay. So, the anatomy of your endocrine system is you have all these glands. You have the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the pineal, hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal glands that are up in your brain that make hormones that tell your body what to do. In your throat here, you have the thyroid and the parathyroids. Down over your kidneys, you have the adrenals. The pancreatic islets, we'll get to those, but they're by your pancreas. And ovaries and testes, and all of this stuff makes hormones. So, if I asked you what the endocrine system was, I would just like you to say glands and hormones are chemical messengers that tell cells what to do. But if you had to get really nitpicky, you'd have to list all of these glands, which I'm never going to ask you to do. Never. All right. So, what does it do for us? Right? I always ask you, like, what does the system of the body do for you? The skin, it was like, produce vitamin D and protection and sensory and stuff. What does the endocrine system do for us? What we always think of is regulates reproductive processes, right? And it does. But really, it regulates your metabolism. It regulates the way your body functions, what it's working on at that time. Is it working on growth? Is it working on rest? Is it working on recouping? Are my blood levels of sugar balanced? Are my blood levels of calcium balanced? Are my blood levels of fat balanced? Fat balanced. It really is something that is regulating the balance in my body. Anybody remember what it's called? Your body's tendency to want to be in balance?
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis. Good job. Wow. Homeostasis. Your endocrine system has a lot, and so does your nervous system, but a lot to do with your homeostasis. It is trying to maintain homeostasis for you. That's its job. I've already said this too. Hormones are chemical messengers that regulate physiological activity of other cells. That's a fancy way of saying that hormones are messengers that tell cells what to do. Because your cells, by the way, are little factories in your body, and you can tell them to produce more proteins or produce certain chemicals for you to build more of your body. So these messengers give orders to your cells coming from your brain. You also, I did say this, so I showed you this picture of all these glands, right, that produce hormones, but you also do have tissues in your body, in certain organs that we'll get to, that produce hormones too. And these are often called local hormones because the hormones are meant to affect the stuff right there. But anyway, I just want you to kind of know that hormones are being produced not just in your glands, but in other areas of your body too. They're usually called local hormones because they're meant to affect something locally there, not go into the bloodstream and get all around the whole body. The most common type of hormone regulation is what's called negative feedback. And all that means is when your body senses something, that it's usually releasing hormones to move levels back in the opposite direction. So let me explain that in a much simpler English. If my blood sugar is getting high, insulin is meant to lower that back down, to send it back in the opposite direction. That's why it's called a negative feedback. The highness of my sugar is meant to set off a hormone that tells it to go back, to move it in the opposite direction. Don't overthink it. It's just the most common way that your hormones talk to your body is usually in negative feedback regulation, saying something has gotten too high. And we're going to move it back in the opposite direction, into the negative direction. And this is the most common way that your hormones act on your body. So instead of telling things to usually increase, in general, they usually are telling things to decrease. They're like, whoa, buddy, this is just too much of XYZ. And they're usually, not always, there are some situations where it's not true, but usually telling stuff to decrease. And that's just negative feedback. They're just given a very fancy name for what hormones usually do, which is say, there's too much of this thing here, let's get rid of some of it. And they're doing that to help maintain your homeostasis, as Miss Monreal said. Yeah. I don't want to tell you about this. Yeah. So, remember that I said some of these are just definitions. Your endocrine system is so complex, so very, very complex, that sometimes, especially in your brain, many of the glands in your brain actually send out a chemical messenger called a hormone to other glands. And the chemical messenger from your brain is telling those glands to now release a chemical messenger to go do some job. So it's almost like there's a command message that goes to other glands and says, now send out the other stuff like middle management. And those are called tropic hormones. It just means a hormone telling another gland, coming from one gland telling another gland to release its hormone. It's just because, and the only reason I even mention it is because I think you'll get asked about it, but also because it shows you how complex the system is. Especially the hormones up in your brain. Because a lot of their job is to tell other glands to do their job. Which kind of makes sense. This is the central nervous system, so this is the central hormonal system too, right? And it's going to send out messages to other glands and say, hey guys, better get on this. Start releasing X, Y, Z. And then they finally do. Let's let some of that go. Okay. So, I set up in your head, you've got the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands. And they do all sorts of things, but let's talk about the hypothalamus because it's kind of important. It controls, it secretes hormones that tell the pituitary gland to secrete more hormones or not. So it secretes tropic hormones that then tell the pituitary gland, which is also in the brain, whether it should secrete more hormones or not. That'll tell your body to do other things, and we'll get to that. Well, that's all I want to say right there. I want to move on. I'll tie this together for you in just a second. So let's talk about the pituitary gland, because the hypothalamus has a lot of control over the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is located in this really, really neat location in your brain. Hold on one second. Okay. By the way, from a massage therapist point of view, we don't care where the pituitary gland's located. You're never going to be able to massage it. You can't ever do anything with it, whatever. But it is up in your brain. But what's very interesting is it's located in this bone that we do care about. This bone, this red bone here is called your sphenoid bone. By the way, the pituitary gland's located right in there. Yeah. And it's this little spot right in the sphenoid bone called your sella turica. Anyway, but the sphenoid bone is fascinating because if you notice there's red right here, there's red right there, sorry, red right there, red right there, red right there, and red here. It's this bat-like shaped bone that runs throughout your entire head and kind of ties all the other bones together. So when we learn about the skull later, the sphenoid bone is really key because it's underneath your palate here. It connects over to the sides of your temples kind of, and your brain actually rests on it right up here. It's this bat-like shaped, very complex bone that ties together a lot of the other bones in your head. And so we think like head pressure and stuff like that could affect the sphenoid bone a little bit and could lead to headaches and things like that, and that's why we care. I don't mean to like make it sound like, I mean, I do carry the pituitary glands in there, but I bet it won't change your life knowing where it is. But knowing that it's on the sphenoid bone is kind of interesting because we're going to care about skull structure later a lot. And you know that if there's a gland in the center of the brain living right here, that it's an important gland. So you will hear about the pituitary gland all the time. It's a very tiny gland, but they actually divide it up into an anterior and posterior portion because it does different things in those different portions and all that kind of stuff. Let me pop along here. It makes a whole bunch of hormones that tell, like growth factor hormones that tell your bones literally to grow. Remember when we learned about the skeletal system, these bones grow at the end. That's how you got taller. All of you. Right? You didn't start out the height you are now. And the pituitary gland released growth hormones that told your bones to grow. And stopped producing them, by the way, to tell your bones to stop. Have you ever seen the pictures of like the 8-foot tall guy? You know, he had a problem with his pituitary gland where it didn't stop telling him to grow. It's a fatal disease. Your skeletal structure can't hold a certain height of person eventually. So if it doesn't tell you to stop eventually, you get too tall. It also handles antidiuretic hormones. And diuretics are things that make you release water from your body. And that might sound like a small thing, but it's huge. And here's why it's huge. Your body is essentially a giant plastic bag with a hole at two ends. One here, and well, maybe two down there, all right? But it's a giant plastic bag, and it's essentially filled with a lot of water and chemicals. And you can put just about any chemical you want into it. That's not what's so good or bad, but the concentration is extremely important. Concentration is extremely important to you guys when you're cooking or whatever. The concentration of what's in your food is very important to you. I don't mean from a health point of view, but you might like salt on your food, but you don't like it to be highly concentrated with salt. You want to taste other things, right? Or if you like sugar in your drink, you want a certain amount. The concentration matters. And so antidiuretics and diuretics help control how much water you let out of your body and how much water you keep in your body. And your body's not really exactly always peeing just because you drank water. It's sometimes peeing to release certain chemicals and to change the chemical balance of your body. How much stuff is diluted in there. And so the pituitary gland helps control those homeostatic balances in the fluids and chemical soup of your body. And you are a big chemical soup. And you die if that chemical soup is not very well maintained. So the pituitary gland helps with that. Cool, cool, cool. Does a whole lot of other stuff. It can also send messages to other glands, right? So it can stimulate your adrenal glands, which are down by your kidneys. It'll send a message down to them to stimulate your adrenal glands, especially cortisol. Cortisol is sometimes referred to as the stress hormone because that hormone raises up, gets increased in people when they have stress. So you'll read about it in massage reports. A lot of times if they're trying to discover if a certain therapy helps people de-stress, they measure their cortisol levels. You can actually measure cortisol levels in people's saliva, so it's a very easy thing to measure. And they'll often take saliva tests to test if your cortisol has gone up or down, to test if your stress levels have gone up and down. And again, we care about stress levels because it's not just your crazy teacher, but everybody knows that being in the parasympathetic state is much healthier for you, and staying in the sympathetic stress state with high cortisol levels is not good for your health. So I already mentioned growth hormone. And thyroid production of certain hormones too. Your thyroid gland is here. but your pituitary gland is sending signals to it to operate. And we're later going to find out your thyroid gland has a lot to do with your metabolism. A lot to do with whether you have a high metabolism or a low metabolism. And I'm oversimplifying here horribly, but you will have clients come to you and say, yeah, I've got a hypothyroid. What does hypo mean? Below. Yeah, you're thinking hyper. Hypo is below. So if they have a low thyroid, they tend to put on weight easy. They tend to be more tired, more lethargic, more sluggish, because they're not getting enough stimulating hormones. If they have a hyperthyroid, you've got that skinny friend that doesn't work out and eats 6 burgers all the time, and you're like, how do you do this? They have a hyperthyroid, and we hate them. No, I'm kidding. But they'll tell you they got a hyperthyroid, and they tend to be a little hyper too, right? Because they got a lot of stuff going on in that body all the time. And that's coming from their thyroid. That's coming from their thyroid. Yes. So, but what's very interesting is the brain is giving the pituitary gland signals. The pituitary gland is sending a chemical signal to tell the thyroid to do that kind of stuff. And lots of people take thyroid medication. So that's why I made such a big deal out of it. So if somebody tells you they have a hypo or a hyperthyroid, personally, it shouldn't affect your massage at all. It's not a contraindication of anything, but people often share it with you. They'll say, yeah, I'm on such and such medication because I have a hypothyroid. Usually it's hypo, low, and they're trying to bring it back up again. Oh, by the way, we also know that stress does not help your thyroid gland. So it tends to bring it down too, because it just gets tired after a while. There's a whole bunch of pituitary hormones that then also go down to stimulate your reproductive glands. So again, the pituitary gland speaks to most of the glands in your body. It also sends out hormones down to your gonads. And these are called gonadotropins. They're a whole group of hormones that speak to your gonads. And by the way, does anybody know what gonads are? Little anatomy lesson for you here that's kind of interesting. You can say. Gonads? Anybody? Somebody?
Do I get half a point if I used to know what they were?
Yes. You get a half a point, but this one's a 2-point question.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't used to know. Don't remember.
Well, usually when I ask the question, it's a trick question. Usually when I ask the question...
Wait, let me get.
Oh.
Before you say it.
Sure.
Does it have anything to do with, like, the reproductive?
It most definitely does.
Okay. All right. That's all I know.
Cool. So when I ask what gonads are, people say testicles. And they are right. But the reason I ask it as a trick question is girls have gonads too. Gonads are actually your sexual organs before they even associate with one or the other, and your ovaries are your gonads. Gonads, we've used it for so long as a male testicle kind of reference that it's that way in our common culture, but if you talk to a doctor, gonads are in both men and women. So that's why I brought it up. It's just an interesting medical thing if you want to be a little bit, more enlightened kind of thing. Gonads are actually reproductive organs in both men and women. They take on different forms and they do different things later because of your hormones and such, but we all have gonads. That's your sex ed for the day, everybody. Anyway, the hormones that affect your gonads are called gonadotropins. Gonadotropins is what they really are. I don't really have to go into all this. I'm not avoiding it. Just pituitary glands also tell you, they have a lot to do, by the way, with controlling your body through pregnancy and milk production when you do have a child, which is amazing. And producing things like oxytocin, which has to do with actually stimulating uterine contractions during pregnancy and labor. Sometimes they will inject people with oxytocin to help speed along their labor. Has anybody had that happen to them? Yes. Was that a pleasant experience?
It gave me back labor, so they stopped it. Which
Yeah. Most.
I never had natural childbirth.
Got it. Sorry, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot there. Most women, I'm a man, I know nothing about childbirth. I'm not trying to sound informed about it. But most women tell me that they hate it when they get oxytocin because what it does is it's a powerful hormone and your body generally releases it slowly and gently, kind of gets things along and contracting and childbirth as it goes and all that good stuff. But when they inject it to you all at once, hormones are powerful and the contractions become very powerful and the labor can become, they say it's like going to 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And it's just, it creates things like back labor and all sorts of stuff. So I'm telling you that because you might have clients talk to you about it. Oxytocin.
I
Yes.
didn't have any negative effects with it.
Good.
Just me, though.
No, that's good.
I'm sure other people do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm delighted. Yeah. Most people tell me that it's terrible. But anyway, amazing and excellent. The other thing the pineal gland can do, which is also in your brain, is help maintain what are called circadian rhythms. And I do want to talk to you for a second about circadian rhythms. So remember, the nervous system is sending very fast messages that need to get there right away. But your body's homeostasis is regulated by these long-lasting, slow messages that say, let's kind of get some sugar out of the system. Let's put some back in. Let's kind of keep the salt balances here. Let's keep the water balance, right? Let's release some water. Let's retain some water. Let's kind of keep all this stuff going. We all have an internal 24-hour cycle of sleep and waking that's called a circadian rhythm. And your hormonal balances have a lot to do with this circadian rhythm. And it can get thrown off, unfortunately, very easily. I hate to erase this, but anyway. But it is the rhythm that if it's working well, in the morning it kind of wakes you up. In the evening, you get tired and you go to sleep. And you have a great sleep like Miss Harper did. Right? So, there are some things that mess with your circadian rhythms. One thing is stress. Stress sends the signal that there is danger. Stress equals danger. In fact, usually when you're stressed, you actually are stressed about danger. It might be an imagined danger or an exaggerated danger, but it's danger to you. It might be an emotional danger, but it's danger to you. And we tend to not sleep really well. It messes with our circadian rhythms. And the problem is when you don't sleep well, you tend to stress more. And so your circadian rhythm gets more messed up. Some of the other things that can mess with your circadian rhythm that I am very guilty of is eating late at night. Here's why that messes with your circadian rhythm. Your body is very intelligent. And if it says, oh, way down here at the end of the day is this wonderful food hour where I get energy and all the stuff that I'm programmed to want to stay alive, well, I'm going to wake up here. I'm going to wake up here and I'm training my body to wake up there. I'm saying there are treats at the end of the day at 10 o'clock at night and my body actually wakes up. And so some of you may have this experience, right? Where you're pretty tired in the morning, pretty tired throughout the day. At the end of the day, you wake up. And eating late at night tends to not help with that. Yeah. So circadian rhythms are often fed or interrupted by food at strange times and by stress. In fact, one of the reasons they argue you should eat some breakfast in the morning is because it kind of helps set your circadian rhythm, because your body says, oh, it's time to wake up now, there's going to be food here, I will wake up. So you're using that to your advantage, and you're starting to train the body that, oh, we don't eat at night, we eat in the morning. And I don't mean you don't eat in the evening, but you don't eat late at night. You eat in the morning, and the body then kind of tends to wake up better in the morning because it goes, it's time to be awake, we're going to forage for food, it's coming, that kind of thing. So you can program your body. But all this is called circadian rhythms, and the reason I'm making such a big deal out of this is massage really seems to help people's circadian rhythms. It helps them calm down and have a good night's sleep. And we have anecdotal evidence for this in this class, because several of you during gratitude on several occasions have said, I had a great massage and a great good night's sleep afterwards. I've heard several of you say it. So good massages tend to help reset your circadian rhythms. By the way, this is actually a very natural circadian rhythm. It's considered very natural to actually kind of wake up around 3 in the afternoon, go here, and then do that. They believe that's how you're actually biologically programmed. And some countries in the world take a big nap here for that reason. They only sleep about 6 hours at night, and they sleep about 2 hours in the afternoon, and they say that in a perfect world, that's actually what you're biologically programmed to do. You're biologically programmed. Yes, Miss Petrie, stress is the downfall of everything. 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 And then everything. But this is a very natural rhythm. If you ever get in a place in your life where you can live that way, where you can kind of take an afternoon nap and then not sleep quite as much at night, you'll find it's a very natural way to be. Problem is, most of us work in jobs and things like that, or go to massage school, and you don't get a chance to do that. But this is a very natural curve. Yeah. And Miss Petrie, to your comment. Oh, Miss Petrie. Dis, D-I-S, basically means without. Dis-ease is without ease. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So we talked about, like, briefly, I admit, but we talked about all these glands in your head that spend an awful lot of time talking to other glands and telling them what to do, to tell the rest of your body what to do. Some of those glands that they talk to are your thyroid glands, and your thyroid is down here. Okay, your thyroid, and it's got little glands on it too called parathyroid glands, but your thyroid is down here. Has anybody seen, you'd have to see it in a third world country, but has anybody seen a picture of somebody with a big lump on their neck? Yes. You'll never see it in this country, actually. That is actually due to an iodine deficiency. It's called a goiter, and it's due to an iodine deficiency, and your thyroid gland is responsible for picking up iodine. I don't think your book talks about this, but I don't know why, because it's really important. But thyroid is very important for picking up iodine, and you need tiny amounts of iodine in your body, in your system. You use it. It's one of those things like magnesium that you need in very small amounts. And iodine you need very small amounts, and when you don't eat it, this gland starts growing bigger and bigger and bigger to try to capture what little iodine that you've got coming into your body. And it ends up being a big goiter. And there's a reason that you never see this in our country. Does anybody know why?
I know,
Why?
because we don't have an iodine problem in our water, I think. Is it our water?
We do add iodine. You're absolutely right. We add it to something that basically everybody has, which is why you...
Salt, table salt.
Yes. Look at the salt when you go buy it in the store, and it will say iodized salt. You don't need to iodize salt. You can even buy non-iodized salt if you look for it really hard. But we iodized salt because by putting small amounts into the salt, it was a perfect way to get iodine into everybody's diet, and you don't have goiters.
So what if you don't add salt to anything?
Good luck. So you might not add salt to anything, but good luck not getting salt added to your stuff.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing as sugar.
Yeah.
Good luck finding
Right.
that doesn't have
Yeah,
sugar.
I don't think I add, that's not true actually, but I basically don't add sugar to anything, but you still get a lot of sugar. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's really hard not to get your iodine. You don't need a lot for one thing.
So somebody doesn't add salt.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the small amounts of iodine that you need.
Yeah. I don't know the exact level, but I would guess that Miss Stanley, when she had one Dorito, got her iodine for the week. One Dorito. So, and you may not eat packaged food, I got that, but almost everything's got iodized salt added in at some level.
Right.
You know, even health drinks and stuff have a little bit of salt added usually at one
Right.
level.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that.
And by the way, there are ways, with a healthy diet, you get iodine other ways too. Shellfish has iodine in it.
Okay.
Seafood, actually part of the flavor of seafood is iodine. So if you eat shellfish at all, you're gonna get iodine for sure. There's lots of other places to get it. Places where you see these goiters, usually it's not just a problem of not iodine, there's a poor diet going on in general. So between our salt and all sorts of stuff, yeah, but you just won't, you won't see it. Cool.
I think Ms. Manson had a question.
Oh, yes. Do you have a question, Sanson? Sorry.
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. So the other thing, by the way, your thyroid controls is calcium levels in your blood, and getting calcium out of your blood and into your bones. And it uses a hormone called calcitonin to do that. There's no need to memorize that. That might be a question on something you can answer once, but I don't think I would know that off the top of my head. The point is just to let you realize that it controls all these processes in your body. But most people think of the thyroid in terms of controlling the speed of their metabolism. Hypo, low thyroid, hyper, high thyroid. It has a lot to do with whether they easily gain weight or not. This is a picture on the left-hand side of the front, the anterior side of your thyroid gland. On the right is the posterior side of your thyroid gland. And those small little bumps there are called parathyroids, and they are other glands, your parathyroid glands. We're going to talk about them briefly. But the parathyroid glands are found in the thyroid gland, and they're all around your throat. Parathyroid glands, by the way, to do the opposite of what your thyroid gland does when it comes to calcium. They actually pull calcium out of your bones. You need calcium, by the way. Remember, we found out that calcium ions help your muscles fire. So if you don't have enough calcium ions in your blood and stuff like that, you'll pull it out of your bones. And by the way, calcium, wow. So calcium supplements don't do you a lot of good for bone structure unless you're doing weight-bearing exercise. So your body doesn't think to absorb calcium in its bones if the bones aren't stressed. So if you're going to take calcium supplements, you should be walking or squatting or something, because if your bones aren't under stress, your body's not going to have a reason to absorb that calcium. It'll just pee it out. Like it doesn't store stuff it doesn't think it's going to need, so to speak. And there is a lot of controversy that I will not weigh in on, but just so you know, because some clients are there's a lot of controversy over whether getting calcium from dairy is the best way to get it for your body. Some people say, my gosh, absolutely, it makes sense. There's loads of calcium in dairy. And other people say that that particular type of calcium causes certain acidification of the body and it doesn't absorb it as well. And it's very controversial. And it comes up with massage therapists sometimes because, of nutrition, and everybody's all into nutrition, stuff like that. Calcium, by the way, is found in other things besides dairy, like broccoli. I love broccoli. Okay. Remember I said down on your kidneys, you've got the adrenals. These glands that produce corticosteroids. The adrenals are really responsible for part of your fight or flight response. Right? That's where you get that message that I've got to really pump up. And when you pump out certain adrenal hormones, they tell your heart to beat faster. They tell the arteries to your legs and arms to increase. The smooth muscle tissue opens up and lets more blood flow there. The smooth muscle tissue to your stomach and intestines actually squeezes down and you stop digesting because your body wants all of that blood to go towards your fight or flight response, to be able to move. Your adrenals are in large part responsible for that. But because they lie on the kidneys, they're on the kidneys, by the way, because they can squirt out that hormone really fast, get into your blood really fast. But because they lie on the kidneys too, they also help regulate water balance and how much salt you retain and all that kind of stuff. Again, I don't want you going around memorizing what all these do. Oh God, I hate all the names I get these. So inside, I'm telling you this, I feel like a bad teacher today. I kind of want you to hear this, but I don't want you to overthink about it. They get so nitpicky because if you were a doctor, this would matter, but you're not. The adrenals are so complex that the inside of the adrenal gland is called the medullary portion of it. The medulla portion of it, the inside portion of it. And it produces different hormones than the outside portion does. So they give it a different name. Yeah. And that's where you get your adrenal-like hormones. In the center of that gland is where you put out epinephrine and norepinephrine. And those are your adrenaline type hormones, the ones that really amp you up. When you drink a Red Bull, you're actually causing your body to release some of those. If you get...
Question.
Yes, please. Save me.
Yeah, you're fine. Okay, so I'm just now realizing, now that I don't know, that the no epinephrine, whatever the hell, is like just literally saying no adrenaline. Like, that's really cool. But why produce that? Like, I don't get it. Like, produce adrenaline and then they produce no adrenaline? Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I love the way you're thinking, but they're both adrenaline.
Oh, they're both adrenaline.
Yeah,
Okay.
they really are. They're both a stress response. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I love where your logic was going with that. But epinephrine and norepinephrine are both adrenaline. They're both stress stimulators. Yep, and they're coming from your adrenals. Yeah. Yep. Good logic though.
Just trying to like find ways to remember these things.
I know. I mean, if I walked away from today, what I would remember I would obviously remember the endocrine system is made up of hormones and glands. The glands produce the hormones. The hormones are chemical messengers that talk to the cells and tell them what to do. We have lots of important glands in our brain and in our throat and over our kidneys and our reproductive area. We also have some organs that also have cells in them that produce these hormones too, and those are called local hormones because they really just speak to the cells in that direct area. I would remember my adrenals or my adrenal glands are located over my kidneys, and they're the thing that really amp me up when I'm in my sympathetic state. I would remember my pituitary gland and stuff really controls a lot of what all the other glands do. and it's really like the central command gland. And the thyroid down here and the parathyroid glands have a lot to do with metabolism. That'd be it. I mean, that's a lot right there.
I just ensured I starred all of those in my notes.
I mean, because that's...
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So, is that hormone stimulated with caffeine, or is just another ingredient in the red one?
Yeah, no, my understanding is it is stimulated with caffeine. By the way, a lot of stuff that affects your body isn't really affecting your body. It's affecting your brain to make a chemical to affect your body. So, when people take some illicit drugs, for example, some of those drugs actually don't get you high at all. They tell the brain to release something that gets you high that you already have. The problem with that, besides, by the way, it's illegal and drug addiction, all that kind of stuff, but the other problem with that is that you've used up those feel-good drugs in your brain that your brain was slowly releasing all the time to help keep homeostasis of your moods. Try to keep that, and you've used up all your mood-controlling drugs, and the next day you're depressed. So a lot of stuff that you take, like caffeine and things like that, it's not necessarily that drug that's actually doing it to you. That drug is telling your body to produce a drug that it already makes, but produce it in larger quantity.
I have a question.
Sure.
And I hope it doesn't take you off topic
No,
real quick, because
I don't-
it doesn't have
sure.
anything to do with this. Why do they say to put like certain like homeopathic medicine like under your tongue?
Oh, that's a great question. I honestly don't know. I would guess because of the absorption. They also do that with lots of certain vitamins and stuff. If they want them to get really quick release into your body, they tell you to put them underneath your tongue. And I'm guessing again, this is terrible, but I'm guessing again it's because you've got lots of blood vessels close to the surface there. And so blood vessels close to the surface in your mouth absorb things very well. Yeah. So that would be my guess. It's a great way.
I thought it was because it tastes nasty on your taste buds, so you put it underneath the tongue and you do this.
That is an equally.
And it doesn't taste bad.
That is an equally, if not better, theory than mine. It could be that too, but I think it's an absorption thing. I'm only saying that because I know that they do that with certain vitamin sprays and stuff. They'll tell you to spray them under your tongue, and I think it has to do with absorption. I really do. I like Miss Torres's idea too. They taste nasty, so they tell you to put them under your tongue. Let's talk about the pancreatic islets. These are on your pancreas, and what do I care about them is that they release two hormones that are super duper important: glycagon and insulin. Glycagon actually goes and tells your body to release more sugar into your bloodstream. Insulin tells your body to take sugar out of your bloodstream. Those two hormones have a lot to do with whether you're a diabetic or not. Although all diabetics are not diabetics because there's a problem with these hormones, but they control your sugar levels. And you really can die if your sugar levels aren't correct. So there is a reason that you can eat a candy bar and not die, because actually a candy bar would kill you. I'm not saying don't eat candy bars, you're fine. But the point is your body actually has to respond to that massive amount of sugar coming in. It actually doesn't want all that sugar at once. And it uses insulin to tell the cells to start soaking up blood sugar and turning it into ATP or fat or something, but getting it out of the bloodstream. And if your sugar level is low, you've all had low blood sugar before, right? You're kind of tired and you sound a little, almost drunk kind of. And I don't know, I just can't remember anything today, Tapscott. That's low blood sugar usually. And glycagon is supposed to hop in there and start telling your body to start getting more sugar out into the blood. But that's all handled in your pancreas. And it's just crucial to the homeostasis in your body. It's just good to know they exist. We'll talk more about diabetes though here, tomorrow actually, because it's important and it ties into this whole section. So, I already said this, glucagon and insulin. Glucagon increases blood sugar levels, insulin decreases blood sugar levels. I would remember from this entire discussion about insulin. Like, insulin is meant to decrease blood sugar in your blood so you don't die when you eat a lot of sugar. That's its job. It's a big hot topic. There's lots of people that need to take insulin. There's lots of people that don't have enough insulin, all sorts of stuff. There's lots of problems with taking insulin. But again, somebody being diabetic would not be a reason not to massage them. All right. Let us talk about one last thing. I believe it's one last thing. Relaxin. Women, when they are pregnant, produce a hormone called relaxin. I actually mentioned it during my pregnancy massage lecture to you guys. Why? What is relaxin and why do I care? So anybody?
It makes the pregnant women relax. I'm joking.
Well, you're close.
I don't know. Relaxin is in the name.
I know.
I think it's it's a hormone, right? Or is it something that
It is a hormone. Hormone, yep.
Hormone that
Produced by the ovaries.
Something in the uterus or whatever to relax or something.
It does.
I'm totally guessing, by the way.
It does help. It does help the uterus relax, so you don't have premature contractions and give birth too early. So that is one of the things it's supposed to do. Absolutely. I don't care as a massage therapist, but that is one of the things. Yes, Miss Monreal.
Doesn't it like make I don't want to say ligament, but whatever is in the pubic area.
You do want to say ligament, pretty much.
Like, so that it can stretch.
Yeah. So, Miss Hunter, by the way, you were right, and I commend you for just taking a stab at it. It does actually relax. It relaxes the uterus to keep you from contracting too early and all that stuff. That's really important. From a massage therapist point of view, it relaxes connective tissue. So, remember your hips are made up of 3 bones. Your ilium, your ischium, and your pubis. And where your 2 pubic bones come together, you can all feel this on yourself, by the way. It's right above your reproductive organs. There's kind of a hard bone right there. And probably a little sensitive too. These 2 bones are connected together with fascia that connects 2 bones together. What do we call fascia that connects 2 bones together?
Ligaments?
Ligaments! Thank you, Miss Yanes. Ligaments, I was just trying to phrase the question a different way. Yes, ligaments attach bone to bone. So this is a ligament, really. And this is called the pubic symphysis, the symphony where the 2 pubic bones come together. Well, if you have to birth a child between these sits bones down here, you want this pubic symphysis to spread. And relaxin helps that happen. So relaxin does lots of stuff. Miss Hunter was right. It keeps the uterus relaxed, so it doesn't go into early contractions, but it relaxes connective tissue in the body. As a massage therapist, I care. Why do I care that it relaxes soft tissue in the body? Connective tissue, especially.
Isn't it because, like, when you stretch them, you could be, like, pulling them more than what their body actually can and they wouldn't know?
Yes. You can overstretch them because their tendons and ligaments can be stretched too easily. That's exactly why. So I would be very careful stretching somebody who's pregnant. They're more likely to stretch too far. Yeah. Their ligaments and tendons are not as hard and tough as they normally are. And the relaxin's there for a reason, but that's just something to remember. That does not mean, by the way, if you... Oh, go ahead.
No. Would you just not really stretch them?
That's what I do. I just don't stretch them. And by the way, I'm not terribly careful with, if somebody's having a healthy pregnancy, I massage them basically like I do anybody else, basically. But I am careful about the stretching. Right?
Is that something that someone should just be careful in general, like to not stretch themselves? not you as a therapist stretching them, but
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the general rule of thumb for pregnancy, and I think this makes a lot of sense, is don't do more of anything than you've been doing already. So if you go to yoga regularly and you want to keep going to yoga when you're pregnant, fine. Don't try to learn some new pose. Don't try to stretch further than you ever stretch, but you could keep doing whatever you've been doing, right? It is not the time to start yoga if you haven't been doing yoga regularly, right? So that's the general rule. If you've been stretching all along, go ahead and keep stretching. Don't try to stretch further, right? So it's a time to maintain, not gain. I don't mean weight, by the way. It's a great time to gain weight. You should gain weight when you're pregnant, but it's a time to maintain, not gain. So if you've been stretching, keep stretching. But if you have not been stretching, it is not the time to start a stretch routine, a yoga routine, and anything routine. And that's the general, most doctors will tell you that.
So for pregnant women, you would just stretch, you wouldn't really stretch at all. You would just massage them like normal.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So like no range of motion stuff.
Well,
really.
it depends. Range of motion doesn't necessarily mean stretching. So right now I'm going through a range of motion right now, right?
Right.
But I'm not stretching. Stretching's when now I'm range of motion, I'm stretching. So you can move them around, but they're not fragile. In fact, if anything, pregnant women are probably the toughest creatures on earth. But I'm not going to put you through psycho stretching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Gentle. If you're going to stretch, gentle. And then at that point, I'm like, well, why bother stretching? So I tend to just rub. That's just my rule of thumb. Yeah. And that's considered pretty common, like industry standard is to remember. That's why I'm making such a big deal about relaxin. There's a hormone produced in the ovaries called relaxin. And from a massage therapist point of view, we care because it softens connective tissue like ligaments and tendons, and you could overstretch somebody. And so we're careful with pregnant women about that. Okay, let's do this. Oh, not that. Sorry, everybody. Bear with me. Aha. There we go. Okay. So, I've got some assignments for you guys for tomorrow. Don't stress. It's all good. Just like what we've always done, I would love you to report back what these are and if we should care as a massage therapist. So, like, are these local, relative, absolute contraindications? And report back to us. So, type 1 diabetes. Miss Bolotic, will you be so kind as to report back to us tomorrow about type 1 diabetes? Miss Bolotic. Are you there, Miss Bolotic? Okay, I hope you're there because I just gave you your assignment. Miss Cooper, type 2 diabetes. Thank you.
Is this on a slide or no?
It is on a slide.
Oh,
But-
I don't see it.
But
Okay,
don't worry.
Thank you.
I'll give you your assignment. I'll say it out loud.
Okay.
And Miss Felix Osuna, can you do goiters for us?
Yeah,
Cool.
I got you.
And Miss Hansen, can you talk to us about Hashimoto disease? Hashimoto. Cool. And remember how I said that there were organs that also had endocrine cells in them? They had cells that can produce, they're not glands, but they can produce hormones. I would love for you to talk to me about these organs and tell me what hormones they produce. And that's it, really. So, Miss Harper, can you tell me, can you study what hormones the kidneys produce? They've got cells in them that produce hormones, and just tell us briefly. I don't need, by the way, a 35-minute presentation, right? We don't, but just basically, like, what hormones do the kidneys produce? Miss Hunter, the thymus. Thymus.
Got it.
Thank you. Mr. Kandaris, this was completely accidental, but the prostate. Yeah, it really was accidental. When I was assigning, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Anyway, Miss Monreal, the placenta. The placenta actually produces hormones. Can you look into that? And Miss Nguyen, are you there? Yes. Miss Nguyen, inside your intestines, which is called your gastrointestinal tract, but it's your intestines. It's the tubing that runs around your body after your tummy. Your intestines, there's mucus around them. They call it the mucosis of the gastrointestinal tract. You might want to write this down, but it sounds much more complicated than it is. It's the tubing after your tummy that goes down to your bottom. And that's your gastrointestinal tract, and it's covered with, well, actually, your gastrointestinal tract is the whole thing from up here all the way down. But anyway, it's covered with mucus, which helps food slide through it and helps protect it from acid and all sorts of stuff. But it produces some hormones. Can you find out what hormones are produced and what they do in the mucosa of the gastrointestinal tract? Sorry. Again, it's just the way it landed. Yes. I'm like, here's the most difficult word I can possibly find. Put it together with a couple other difficult words, and let's give it to Miss Nguyen. Miss Petrie, the heart produces hormones of love. But anyway, look into that. Let us know. And Miss Stanley, will you research and find out what adipocytes are and what hormones they can produce? We'd all like to know what adipocytes are. I mean, I know what they are, but I'd like everybody else to know what they are. Adipocytes. And oh, Miss Torres, this is a vague assignment, so I apologize. But can you research what hormones are associated with stress? Like when you're stressed, what hormones you produce? And Miss Yanez, can you research what hormones are associated with rest and feelings of well-being and goodness and lollipops?
Yeah, I got it.
Cool. All right. And Miss Bilotic, are you there? Or did you fall asleep on me? Hey. Kind of thinking the latter of the two. Okay. All right. So that's that. And Miss Hunter, did you get yours?
I did, but I have a question.
Sure.
So I don't think I quite understand this
This assignment?
Thank you. Are we supposed to, am I doing too much by like doing all this research, or am I just supposed to like summarize what's in the book?
Well, let me be transparent. If you summarize what's in the book well, you could probably get away with that, and many people do. I would love it if you all did, honest to God, 15 minutes of extra internet searching just to see if there's ever anything interesting outside of what's in the book. But I will be very honest with you. If you, in your case with the thymus, which is discussed in the book pretty well, if you were just to summarize that for all of us, it would act as a review with some of the stuff we're talking about, and you would be fine.
Okay.
Now I know telling you that, and I know the type of person you are, that you're still going to go research, so I don't mind sharing that with you.
Of course I am, but I don't understand. I was just wondering if like that's all you wanted was a summary of the book already.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I would love it if I learned something, and quite often you guys do share something where I'm like, I didn't know that, right? I love learning something outside of the realm of the book. However, I also, by the way, and I really do mean this, as much as I really appreciate extra work put in, I do not want you spending an hour and a half on an assignment that I really think should be a half an hour assignment, right? And I win either way, because even if you just summarize the book, as long as you summarize it very well, you're putting it in a different language that other people can hear and understand, and you're helping us review. But yeah, so yeah, please, at the bare minimum, everybody, please summarize what's in the book. And summarize it. Don't read it to us, summarize it. But if you want to do 15 minutes of extra research online, I would greatly appreciate that. And it makes you look extra stellar because you just threw out one extra fact, you know? Shows a little
Okay,
bit extra.
thank you.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Okay, let's stop sharing here.